going to talk more about J-edge anchor system. It's a continuous anchor system that is around the edge of the steel building and its advantages. One of the advantages is it presents a better load path in getting the outboard loads associated with whatever the facade is, in this case it's curtain wall, down into the structure without the eccentricity of the bent plate pour stop. You can kind of see that over here on the right hand side that we have the wind load and it's concentric, and so there is no eccentricity associated with that, no bending of this bent plate pour stop. What that does is, for creating a better load path, it means that there's more capacity associated with that. We're going to talk about that in just a few seconds, but let's talk about stronger steel. Because this is an extruded part, it goes through a process that makes it a stronger steel, and so we actually have some mill certifications that gets up to approximately 60 plus KSI for the yield strength, compared to 36 KSI yield strength for the bent plate pour stop. That gives us over 60% more capacity associated with J-edge anchor system. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the better load path and what that means in terms of an advantage. So we have a standard setup here with a clip angle for a curtain wall with 400-pound dead load and about 1,000-pound wind load. That would be a standard that we would have for one clip angle off of a curtain wall. Now there would be two clip angles usually on a curtain wall side by side, spaced about 2.5 inches apart, but this is just one of those. So for a bent plate pour stop, we put these same loads in and we assess it, and this is a 6-inch deep example of a bent plate pour stop, and so this is your maximum moment that you get, about 6,340. Compared with J-edge anchor system, we get up to about 2,392 pound-inches. That represents an increase in capacity of over 150% for the J-edge anchor system. So those two items connected together, with the better load path and the better yield strength, actually get us to about over 200%, close to 200% increased capacity over a standard steel bent plate pour stop. Another advantage associated with it is an obvious advantage. It is a truly adjustable all the way around the exterior of the building connection system, whereas with the steel bent plate pour stop, they have a very rigorous setup in being able to locate, relocate, and re-verify up until the time that they're actually welding this on. And so there's a lot of process there in being able to field weld this on in place. And if there's any mistakes at all in the location of it, means a tremendous amount of work to remove this welded system off of that bent plate pour stop and relocate it. Another advantage of the J-edge anchor system over the steel bent plate system is the reduction in construction schedule. We went out to many glazing contractors and we asked them, what does it take to weld this, field weld this on to the bent plate pour stop? And they've come back and answered approximately 15 minutes is what they would use in estimating this process of each one. Now remember, there's 2 of these clips per curtain wall mullion, one on each side, and so it's about 30 minutes per mullion that you would have associated with the construction time. So there's also time to laser and map and plan and re-go through the exact location, because if they get this off, it's a real mess, and so there's additional time associated with this. This J-edge anchor system actually speeds the time of facade enclosure greatly because it's an adjustable bolted system. Another system advantage to the J-edge anchor system is that the traditional bent plate pour stops are actually very rolly, in and out of plane, and it creates a great allowance for tolerance that is not present with a true extruded part. The J-edge anchor system is a very straight edge to the outward building structure, whereas this bent plate pour stop weaves in and out of the building plane quite a bit. Another system advantage is the typical construction safety railing that is associated with a bent plate pour stop. Many people don't realize that whenever we have this bent plate pour stop, as seen in the picture up here, it gets a temporary construction railing system welded to the inside of that bent plate pour stop. What that means is that whenever they're going along and they're fabricating this, they're welding it in the field, or they're fabricating this in a shop. More likely they're welding this off in the field. So it saves that amount of time in what I'm going to show you in just a little bit. But the problem with this is also whenever they leave this in place and they pour the concrete, this is left in place because it still has to serve as a safety railing system. How do they get rid of it? They have to cut it off, and so this actually leaves a re-entrant corner into your newly formed slab that can cause cracks, etc., associated with the slab. So this is a product that you can find online at jedgeanchor.com. It is a safety railing system that has a modified attachment system into the J-Edge anchor system. And it's got a quick release with a key bearing lock associated with it, so that it is a reusable safety railing system. Quick to install and quick to take down. It doesn't leave the cutting off and the wasted material for the standard safety railing system that is welded to the inside of a bent plate pour stop system. So it has the ease of temporary construction of enclosure too, with this same type of anchor system, or this connection system into the J-Edge anchor system, with posts that go floor to floor. And so if we see this, it also has an advantage to temporarily close off the building structure with sheets so that actual work can go on inside of inclement weather. Another advantage that we see in J-Edge anchor system is the ease of temporary construction enclosure. So if we use this same type of connection system that was used for the guardrail application, and we have a continuous post that runs floor to floor associated with it, it's very easy to attach a temporary enclosure in a sheet of some sort that gains you in the field an enclosed area where construction can go on, protected from inclement weather. Another advantage is potential structural thermal breaks. So architects are struggling and looking for ways that they can meet this net zero that's coming up in 2030. This actually helps out quite a bit, because if you can imagine what was occurring before, whenever we had a bent plate pour stop and we had a welded system that was welded directly onto it, was transmittal of thermal loads in and out of the building associated with that welded system. And now using what we know that we have used in the past with structural systems and structural connections, and some of these are listed up here, we can use those same type of materials and we can actually break that and create a thermal break to the system, creating great advantages for the net zero application. Another advantage would be flexibility for reconstruction in the future. So imagine this. What is the possibility if we're using a cassette system, which are available now by manufacturers? And what that means is it has a toggle type system associated with capturing the glass on the outboard side of the curtain wall system. Being able to use that cassette system with the J-Edge anchor system, what does that mean in terms of reuse of the system 10 to 15 years down the road? They can actually go in and replace the glass that's associated with it. They can adjust the curtain wall spacings, and they can even potentially attach new and different facade type connections, so that we might have a building that looks something like this go to something that looks like that in the very near future. This creates a great advantage for architects wanting to renovate buildings. Another potential advantage and use with J-Edge anchor system is associated with this detail as an optional frame out. In other words, J-edge anchor doesn't necessarily need to be attached directly onto a beam. There are frame out details associated with this to be able to extend it out in a way where we've got a setback of the beams and the steel structure. So this is an option to be able to use. We also have options to be able to use anchor systems that get welded onto the J-edge anchor system and run back to transfer loads back into the slab system. But there's not really much need for this anchor system because most of our loads are now traveling directly through and into the structural steel system from the J-edge anchor system because it's a concentric connection. Another potential advantage is that it improves support for precast. And so we see in this detail our traditional type of anchor that would have been up here embedded into the concrete to attach for wind loads from precast is now set out in front of the slab system, requiring maybe just a little bit more space, but we can potentially use a braced plate to anchor that back into the J-edge anchor system. More than likely, though, we'll see a detail that is associated with the precast that looks something like this, where we have the precast that has a tie that is on the underside of the slab system, where in this case all we have to have is a plate, a steel bent or a steel plate that is a flat plane. There is no bracing that's needed for this steel bent or this steel plate to be able to pick up those types of loads. So for masonry, we would still have that same ledge angle that is here, or we would have some type of a spanning system that would be in between and bolted at various spacings associated with that ledge to pick up the dead loads from the masonry. Whereas on the bent plate pour stop, we had much field welding that was associated with, and also eccentric bending of the steel bent plate pour stop. So it improves options for cold formed steel construction as well, where we see that in the past we've had this eccentric connection onto the outboard side of the steel bent plate pour stop, and we've either used those pin type fasteners or we've welded it in place for that eccentric connection. So we get away from those pin type fasteners, we get away from the weld, and we have a standard bolted connection associated with that is a concentric connection, allowing concentric loads back into the steel structure. We also have some important advantages associated with a glass handrail system and glass guard systems. And so in this detail we see that we have an angle that is a support angle to a aluminum shoe that houses a glass railing system. And so in the absence of this, we'd have some type of steel bent plate pour stop, and we'd have some type of a clip angle that is continuous welded onto that steel bent plate pour stop. One of the main advantages associated with J-edge anchor system is the cost advantage. It's better than typical bent plate pour stops cost-wise. Here's the reason why. The increased cost of the part actually is less than the deducts associated with the cost of field welding. Here's a real example of a medium-sized office building that is 7 floors high. We would have a typical increase for the current construction or the current extrusion of the J-edge anchor system of about $92,000. That's an increase. What we would see in a deduct for that, for a curtain wall installation, just getting rid of all of the time associated with the field welding and being able to enclose that in a faster way, is approximately $200,000 for the J-edge anchor system. So that creates a cost savings with the J-edge anchor system over the field welding of the bent plate pour stops and the installation of the bent plate pour stop. It doesn't include savings time for reusable safety railing, the faster construction schedule, the value of opening the office up to a month early because we were able to enclose the building faster.